كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كما أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كلا لما جميع لدينا موزرون وآيات لهم الأرض الميتة دعناها وخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملت أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآيات لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناها منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآيات لهم أن حملنا ذريتهم في فلك مشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشاء نغرقهم فلا صارخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آيات رب إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أن نطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعم إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يقسمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا جميع لدينا موزرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة يوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قول من رب رحيم وامتازوا الأيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا فلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها يوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على الأفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسكناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مزيا ولا يرجعون ومن نؤمر ننكس في خلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان يهكل ويكل قول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللنا لهم فمنه راكبوا ومنه يأكلون ولهم فيها وما شارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دونه آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند موزرون فلا يحزنك قوله إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم إنسان أن خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي الرميم قل يحيي الذين أنشأ الأول مرة وبكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو خلاق عليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Brothers and sisters, please recite Surah Fatiha for your marhumin and for the marhumin of all those mu'mineen, mu'minat that do not have anyone to recite Surah Fatiha on their behalf. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يوصينا معه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بحد الهمم ولا يناله غوث الفتن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نات موجود ولا وقت محدود ولا أجل ممدود فترى الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته ووتد بالسخر ميدان أرض ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وحبيبنا وحبيب رب العالمين بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين واللعن على أدائهم أجمعين من أول يوم ظلمهم إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المبين وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فإذا قرأت القرآن فاستعذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إنه ليس له سلطان على الذين آمنوا وعلى ربهم يتوكلون إنما سلطانه على الذين يتوكلونه والذين هم به مشركون صدق الله العلي العظيم. The Khilafat of Abu Bakr ibn Quhafa, this is a Khilafat where when he became Khalifa, the first thing that he said was that I am going to, the little sermon that he gave, inshallah, we'll talk about that sermon, but the reason he gave after becoming a Khalifa was he said that I am going to do justice, I'm going to run the Islamic government the same way that the Holy Prophet ran the government. And the narration states that Abu Bakr, his Khilafat only lasted about 2.5 years. That was it, maximum. 2 years and a couple of months. In those 2 years, 3 months, 2 years, 5 months, his power had not been set yet. Meaning that in the first year when he became Khalifa, as soon as he became Khalifa, the first thing that was happening within the Arabian Peninsula, that there were already people that were leaving Islam. There were pockets of people, and the wars that you all hear about, where the wars against apostasy, the wars of apostasy, these were fought in the Khilafat of Abu Bakr. And when it comes to these wars, you'll come to realize that some of these wars that Abu Bakr fought, it wasn't that the people that he fought against were apostates. For the youngsters, apostates, you know what that means? Someone who leaves the fold of Islam. Anyone who's read the kalima, anyone who claims to be a Muslim now, once they leave the fold of Islam, they're considered to be apostates. It was in Abu Bakr's reign where these Ridda wars happened. It was in Abu Bakr's reign when he claimed that he was fighting against these individuals because they had apostatized, they had left the fold of Islam. When you look into history and you see the amount of wars that were fought under this pretext, you see the amount of Sahaba that were killed under this pretext. You see that the first individual to kill Muslims by saying that this individual has left the fold of Islam was Abu Bakr. It was in Abu Bakr's reign where Muslims were killing Muslims. And inshallah, we'll get to some of those stories where Abu Bakr, he sends Khalid bin Walid, and Khalid bin Walid, what he does with some of the companions of the Holy Prophet and what he did to those tribes. But in these 2 years of Abu Bakr's reign, there was so much injustice that was rampant from the beginning to the end of his reign. you start to wonder, did he really rule the way the Holy Prophet wanted to rule? Did he really rule the way the Holy Prophet did rule? Or no, did he want to rule in a different manner? From the beginning, you understand and you learn that Abu Bakr did not want to rule the way the Holy Prophet wanted to rule. What do I mean? Right after they pledged allegiance to Abu Bakr in Saqifa, the narrations, they state that Abu Bakr and his associates, right after they left Saqifa, it didn't happen near the masjid. Back in that time, the masjid was the area, the masjid was the place where everything would, if any decision needed to be made, the Holy Prophet would be in the masjid, he would make all those decisions. Basically, the masjid was the center of the city, meaning Masjid al-Nabawi was the center of the city. When Abu Bakr's Khilafat was chosen for him, or when people did bayat in Saqifa was not near the masjid. It was a bit away from the masjid. When he came back with that bayat, Abu Bakr and his associates, the narrations, they say that anyone that they met in the alleys on their way to the masjid, anyone that they met in the alleys, they would forcefully take their hands, they would rub it on Abu Bakr's hand and say that you've pledged allegiance to Abu Bakr. You've pledged allegiance to the new Khalifa. When you think about the way the Pledge of Allegiance was taken, where they were forcefully, without even asking the individuals whether they pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr or not, you understand that this was already deviating from the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's Prophet would take pledges of allegiance. For example, there was a time when the Holy Prophet took a pledge known as what? Bayatul Rizwan. The Pledge of Allegiance in Rizwan, which happened during the same time as Hudaybiyah. Did the Holy Prophet ever force anyone to pledge allegiance to him? No, he didn't. There was another time that the Holy Prophet asked people to pledge allegiance, which was that Bayat al-Ghadir, where the Holy Prophet asked everyone to pledge allegiance to him and Amir al-Mu'mineen. Did the Holy Prophet ever force anyone to pledge allegiance to Amir al-Mu'mineen? Do you find any narrations where it says that the supporters of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they forcefully took the hands of the deterrents of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they pledged allegiance to Amir? No, you don't find any of these narrations. So from the beginning of Abu Bakr's rule, you understand that no, his rule wasn't anything like the Holy Prophet's. Look at the Holy Prophet. In Mecca, when he was calling people to Islam, did he ever force anyone to accept Islam and read the Shahada? No, he didn't. He didn't. He came to Medina. When he came to Medina, did he force anyone to read the Shahada? No, he didn't. When he conquered Mecca, did he force anyone to pledge allegiance to him? No, he didn't. Did he force anyone to recite the kalima? No, he didn't. So why is it that now this individual, as soon as he has power, he's forcing people, threatening people to pledge allegiance to them? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. You read in the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, what do you read? Verse 256, which is part of Ayatul Kursi. La ikraha fid deen. There is no compulsion in religion. And it goes on to say what? That truthfulness has been manifest, or truthfulness has been separated from wrongdoing. There's already something that differentiates truthfulness from wrongdoing. If truthfulness is clearly differentiated from wrong, then that means that there's no compulsion that needs to be taken. There's no compulsion in religion. What do I mean by this? What does the Quran mean by this when it talks about this? There's no compulsion in religion. And some people, they take this verse of the Quran and they take it out of context. Meaning what? There's no compulsion in religion. That means that you can't force anyone to pray. You can't force anyone to keep fast. You can't force anyone to go to Hajj. That's not what this means. That's not what this means. When it comes to religion, you can't force anyone to accept the beliefs of the religion. The beliefs of forcing mean what? By hitting them. Forcing mean what? By attacking them. Force mean what? By threatening them. You will not be able to get them to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by this. When it comes to submission, Shahid Mutahari, he argues, look, submission, there's three types of submissions. One is just submission of the body. Submission of the body is two people fighting, one of them wins. One of them wins. That's submission. You can submit someone physically, but does that mean that that individual has submitted mentally? No. Does that mean that that individual has submitted spiritually? No. After submission of the body, which is the weakest form of submission, the weakest form of submission, the next form of submission is submission of the intellect, submission of the mind. You can't beat anyone. You can't threaten anyone to get them to understand, for example, mathematical concepts. You can't threaten them. They will have to what? The only way they'll accept those types of concepts is if their mind accepts it. The third type of submission is submission of the heart. Shaykh Mutari says the third type of submission is submission of the spirit, submission of the heart. And this submission of the spirit, submission of the heart happens when? When both the physical body and the mind both submit, then the heart will submit. When an individual has this third form of submission, then they've completely submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The verse of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Oh, you believe, submit completely. Submit all at once." Shaykh Mutari says what this means is submission of the heart. If you just submit physically, then you haven't submitted completely. If you submit just mentally, then you haven't submitted completely. Look at what Shaitan, and he brings this argument. He says, look at Shaitan. Shaitan, was he a Muslim or no? Question for everyone. Was he a Muslim or no? When he was Iblis, yes, he was Muslim. Shaitan, he believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what? Tawheed. Shaitan, he believes in Nabuwat. He believes in prophets. When it comes to Tawheed, what does Shaitan say to Allah subhanahu? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks Shaitan, why did you not bow down to him? What does Shaitan say? Ya Allah, you created me from fire and you created him from dirt. Shaitan believes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is his creator, so he believes in God. Correct? Shaitan himself, he tells Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what? Ya Allah, keep me alive until the day of judgment. That is what? Shaitan believing in the day of judgment. Shaitan, he tells Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, I will make them all go astray except for your most devoted servants. Are there any servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that are more devoted to him than the prophets? No. Shaitan believed in Tawheed. Shaitan believed in Nabuwat. Shaitan believed in Qiyamah. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you're a kafir. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you're a kafir. Just believing these things does not make you a Muslim. What did Shaitan not do? He didn't submit completely. His spirit did not submit to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he's a kafir. If these individuals did not submit to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what was the last command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before the Holy Prophet left this world? The last command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was regarding the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. If they did not submit to the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, even if they were to believe in La ilaha illallah, even if they were to believe in Muhammad Rasulullah, even if they were to believe in Qiyamah, because they did not submit to the last command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're kafir. They're kafir. Submitting completely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what makes you a Muslim. We come to the Khilafat of this very first Khalifa. Inshallah, we'll talk about some of the atrocities that he did against Ahlul Bayt in regards to Fadak. Inshallah, in the next coming days, we'll talk about Fadak. Because that itself is enough to prove the kufr of some of these companions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that anyone that does not decide the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided, humul kafirin, humul zalimin, humul fasiqeen. If they do not decide according to the ways of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the Quran. Inshallah, we'll get to it. But when it came to Abu Bakr, what is the first thing he says when he gets to the minbar? He says, O people, I have been appointed the Imam over you. I have been appointed the leader over you. I'm not the best from amongst you. Think about this. I'm not the best from amongst you. If I do something good, then help me to continue it. If I do something bad, then you correct me. Is this what an imam is supposed to do? What do I mean? If I know more than the imam, isn't the job of the imam to correct my way of life? The job of the leader is to correct everything I do. That's the job of the imam. If I'm having to correct the imam, then why do I need to follow him? If I need to correct the imam, why am I going to follow him? Look at the conditions. Look at the conditions. Imam al-Jama'at, this is, when you start thinking about Imam al-Muslimin, there are conditions for Imam al-Jama'at, that regardless of whether you're Shia, you're Sunni, it doesn't matter. Regardless of that. There are conditions for Imam al-Jama'at, the leader, the Imam who leads people in prayers. There are conditions for that. One of the conditions is that that person needs to be adil. That person needs to be just. Do you know what adalat means in Islamic terminology? Adalat means to put everything in its rightful place. Adalat, it means to put everything in its rightful place. Meaning what? Meaning, this is a bookshelf. If I take a book out of here, if I put it anywhere other than this place, then that is zulum. If I put it back in here, then that is adal. Example, glove, socks. Everyone's wearing socks. Socks are meant to be worn where? On the feet. That is adalat. You've done justice with those socks. If I was to wear socks on my hands, that's called zulum. That's called injustice. Why? Because I've put those things in a place that they did not belong. We have gloves already for that. If I was to wear the gloves on my feet and put the socks on my hand, that is injustice. Injustice. One of the conditions is justice. An individual who breaks oaths between just two people, would you consider them to be just or unjust? This individual had just taken an oath 2 months prior with the Holy Prophet. He had taken an oath. He made a pledge to the Holy Prophet 2 months ago. Now he's broken that pledge. So you tell me, is that considered to be justice or injustice? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. If everyone can please come forward. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. As I said, one of the conditions is adal. If this individual breaks that oath, not from people like you and me, but he's broken that oath from Rasulullah. The pledge to Rasulullah is a pledge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He hasn't broken the pledge with just Rasulullah, but he's broken the pledge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you break that pledge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you're considered to be unjust. You're considered to be a zalim. In regards to Imam al-Jama'at, because he's considered to be a zalim, he's not even fit to lead salat, let alone fit to lead the Islamic ummah. 1, 2. He said what? I'm not the best. I'm not the best. Another condition for Salatul Jama'at is what? Qira'at. Qira'at. Meaning that if there's an individual who has better qira'at than the person that's leading Salat, they can't pray behind them. If an individual has better qira'at than the imam, they're not allowed to pray behind them. If Abu Bakr himself, he's saying that, you know what, he's not the best of the people. If he's not the best of the people from that community, then he should step aside and let the best of the people lead the community. This is what this khilafat truly is. Khilafat was always an uhda from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We talked about this a few days ago. It wasn't for anyone to just come and sit on this seat of Rasulullah. What does Amir al-Mu'mineen say in the Nahju Balagha, in the sermon of Shaqshaqiyah? He says that these clothes, he refers to Khilafat as the clothes. He says these clothes of Khilafat, they were for me, and Abu Quhafa is the one who put them on. Abu Quhafa is the one who put them on. Meaning what? It was usurped. If it was usurped, everything he did while he was a Khalifa was haram for him to do. And inshallah, we'll see some of the things that he did do. Tomorrow, we'll talk about Fadak and why Fadak is so important when it comes to Karbala. Why Fadak is so important when it comes to Karbala. Fadak, maybe some people just think it was just over land. It was land, that's true. But that's not the reason Lady Zahra went. There were other things that were happening. You look at what she said and you look at the claims that were being made, you understand that these same Muslims who were ruling over other Muslims saying that these people have apostatized, these same people had apostatized. These same individuals had left the fold of Islam. And we'll get to it tomorrow where not just Lady Zahra, not just the Quran, but Amir al-Mu'mineen himself, all of them are saying the same thing. That these individuals, this individual has become a kafir. They've become a kafir. But in Abu Bakr's rule, do you all know the first thing he did? The first thing he did after he became Khalifa and it was settled in a few days, the first thing he did was the expedition of Usama that was supposed to go in the time of the Holy Prophet. He hurries that expedition with one condition. The Holy Prophet, when he wanted that expedition to go, what did he say? He wants all of the companions to go, except for Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now, when Abu Bakr has become Khalifa, what is he saying? He's saying he wants all of the companions to go, except for Umar ibn Khattab. Why? Because Umar ibn Khattab is needed to help him run the government. You tell me now, wasn't there a change in the command? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger have already decided on a matter, it's not becoming for a Muslim man or for a Muslim woman to have their say in that matter. Before the Holy Prophet left this world, he had already decided that the person that needs to stay is Amir al-Mu'mineen and everyone else needs to go. Now when Abu Bakr changed the commands of the Holy Prophet, what does that mean? That means that he decided to say what he wanted to in a matter that the Holy Prophet had already decided on. In a matter that the Holy Prophet had decided on. And that verse goes on to say what? Those people that do that are zalimeen. Those people that do that are zalimeen. When it comes to the commands, this chain of command, it goes from top to bottom. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Holy Prophet, and then who? Ulul Amr minkum, meaning Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen, when we get to his Khilafat, you understand that he wanted to revert back to what Islam was in the time of the Holy Prophet. He himself, he says one thing, to this day, you understand how Mazlum Amir al-Mu'mineen was. You understand how far Islam had deviated from the time of the Holy Prophet. What does Amir al-Mu'mineen say? He says, look, these 4 years, I tried my best just to prevent people from reciting Taraweeh, and I couldn't do it. I tried my best just to try and prevent people from reciting Taraweeh prayer, and I couldn't do it. This is how Mazloom Amir al-Mu'mineen was. This phrase itself tells you how much deviation came into Islam. Where these other prayers came from. The bunyad was from this. Abu Bakr. One of the things that Abu Bakr did was that Usama's army. If you want to know how Yazid came to power, it goes back to here. After the Ridda Wars, Abu Bakr, he was expanding the empire. Iraq, the parts of Iraq were in the control of Iran. Balad al-Sham was with the Romans and Byzantines. When it got conquered, who does Abu Bakr make the governor? Who does Abu Bakr make his representative for Balad al-Sham? Do you all know? Yazid ibn Abu Sufyan. Yazid ibn Abu Sufyan is who? The brother of Muawiyah. Yazid ibn Abu Sufyan, he's the brother of Muawiyah. Yazid ibn Abu Sufyan, he becomes the governor of, he becomes the leader of, he becomes the representative of Abu Bakr where? Balad al-Sham. And who becomes the governor of Jordan? Muawiyah bin Abu Sufyan. He becomes. Through who? Abu Bakr. Do you see how these were some of the first bricks that were laid down for Karbala to happen? When Yazid, he dies, Yazid ibn Abu Sufyan, the brother of Muawiyah, when he dies, Umar, what does he do? He makes him the leader in Sham. He gives him representation in Sham. And you see everything that happened afterwards. Inshallah, we'll get to it. But in those Ridda wars, if you look at the narrations state that the people, they were divided, there were 4 groups of people there in those wars. One group of people, they had truly left the fold of Islam. There were people that claimed to be prophet, there were people that claimed to be prophetesses. And Abu Bakr fought against them. That's absolutely true. Another group of people, they did not believe that Abu Bakr was the rightful Khalifa. Second group of people. The third group of people, they were still Muslim, but they didn't want to pay zakat. Third group of people. The fourth group of people is that they were still Muslim. They didn't want to pay zakat to Abu Bakr. They didn't want to pay zakat to Medina. They wanted to use the zakat in their own vicinity. So you had 4 groups of people. One group that completely left the fold of Islam, another group that did not want to act or abide by some of the laws of Islam, another group that did not even believe that Abu Bakr was a rightful Khalifa, and another group that wanted to follow the laws of Islam, but they didn't want to give that zakat to Medina. They wanted to use the zakat in their own place. So of all these 4 groups, how many groups are truly apostates? How many groups have truly left the fold of Islam? Just one. Just one. And that was that group who claimed that there was another prophet after Rasulullah. That was it. You look at one of the battles that Abu Bakr sent one of his closest companions, the sword of Islam. He was given that title, the sword of Islam. Where does he go? He goes to Yemen. Why does he go to Yemen? Because one of the companions of the Holy Prophet, who was the representative of the Holy Prophet in Yemen, who the Holy Prophet had told, you know what, you're the one who's going to collect the zakat for me, Malik. He told him that you're the one who's going to collect zakat for me from your tribe, and I want you to bring it to me. Abu Bakr, He sends Khalid bin Walid there, and Khalid, when he gets there, he has his army ready to fight. These guys, they're all Muslim. Malik is also Muslim. Khalid, he tells Malik, pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr. Pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr. Malik, he says, Abu Bakr? Why would I pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr? 2 months ago, Ghadir, I was there. I pledged allegiance to Amir al-Mu'mineen. The Holy Prophet said that Amir al-Mu'mineen is to be Khalifa. Why would I pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr? He said, no, he's a Khalifa. No, I don't believe him to be the Khalifa. I don't accept him to be the Khalifa. When he said this, that's when he was killed. Khalid bin Walid, he kills Malik. Not only does he kill Malik, but what does he do? You read the narrations, you read the history. He beds his wife that same night. And he goes back to Medina the next day or 2 days later. It came to a point where Umar, when he heard about this story, he tells Abu Bakr to punish him. He tells Abu Bakr to punish him. When he comes back, Umar, he looks at Khalid, because Khalid, he came with a lot of pomp. He came with a lot of show that he had just won a battle. When he came like this, Umar, the narration state that Umar, he gets angry and says, you come like this? You come bragging that you've done something? You killed a Muslim and you did that with his wife and you're coming here, you're a hypocrite. Umar ibn Khattab calling someone else a hypocrite. But he tells him, you're a hypocrite. Khalid bin Walid, he doesn't even pay attention to Umar. If you look at history, he never paid attention to Umar because he knew how Umar was. He went straight to Abu Bakr. And what does he do? He tells Abu Bakr that I did this for you. I did this for you. Why? Because he didn't accept your khilafat. And because he didn't accept your khilafat, I had to kill him. Why? So your hukumat, your government can become strong. Your government can become strong. Isn't it odd? Anyone that comes out against the first Khalifa, they're apostates, they're kafir, they're mushrik, they're all of this. Anyone that comes out against the second Khalifa, they've left the fold of Islam. Anyone that rises up against the third Khalifa, against Islam. But anyone that rose up against the fourth Khalifa, Amir al-Mu'mineen, what do they say about them? Oh, Siddiqah. She's Siddiqah. She's the truthful. Rose out against Amir al-Mu'mineen. What is he? Katib al-Wahi. Why is it that there's so much hatred for Amir al-Mu'mineen? Why don't the Muslims keep that same order and say, hey, anyone that rose out against any Khalifa is a kafir? Why? Because if that was the criteria, then they would have to admit that one of the wives of the Holy Prophet became kafira. They'd have to admit that Muawiyah ibn Abu Sufyan became kafir. And because they don't want to admit this, what did they say? It was their ijtihad that allowed them to make a mistake. Ijtihad, yes. How many people were in Jamal? Jamal were killed. Do you all know? Over 40,000 people. Over 40,000 people were killed in Jamal. This ijtihad is going to be on her neck. It's going to be on those two companions' neck. Their ijtihad, which killed 40,000 Muslims. On the day of judgment, those Muslims will be asking. They'll be asking. This is how much hatred came in for Amir al-Mu'mineen. From the beginning, And you see that hatred still exists. They ask Imam, maybe a lot of people, they have this misconception that a Khawarij is someone that has hatred for Amir al-Mu'mineen. A Nasibi is someone that has hatred for Amir al-Mu'mineen. A companion, Imam Sadiq al-Islam, he comes to the Imam Sallallahu Alaihi Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The Imam, he asks him, do you know who a Nawasib is? He goes, Mullah, yes, those individuals that claim to hate Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. He says, no, that's not what a Nasibi is. He goes, Mullah, then what's a nasibi? You won't find anyone that outright claims that they hate Ali ibn Abi Talib. Then Mullah, who's a nawasib? Anyone that hates you for loving Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, they're a nasibi. Anyone that hates you for loving Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, they're considered to be nawasib. So those individuals that hated the Shias because they loved Amir al-Mu'mineen, those are the individuals that are considered to be nawasib. You look at Amir al-Mu'mineen when he fought against the people in Nahrawan. Do you know why he fought those people? Amir al-Mu'mineen had left them alone. He had left them alone. Yes, they were cursing Amir al-Mu'mineen. Yes, they were saying Amir al-Mu'mineen has become apostate. They were saying all that, but he had left them alone. When did Amir al-Mu'mineen finally rise out against them? Do you all know? When they finally started killing innocent Shias of Amir al-Mu'mineen. When they started killing innocent people, that's when Amir al-Mu'mineen picked up his sword and rose up against them. He never attacked them first. He didn't even care if they had left their pledge of allegiance. He didn't even care. Never forced anyone to pledge allegiance to him. And you have Abu Bakr who's forcing people. These fatwas that a lot of the muftis they put out today about wajib al-qatl, that person has become apostate, they're wajib al-qatl. Where did they learn this from? Go back and listen, go back and read history and you'll see who the first individual was to do that. All these fatwas. Especially, I know most of us are old enough to know, we went through it. 2011, 2012, when ISIS and Daesh, they were taking over parts of Iraq. What were the fatwas that the muftis were saying? Yes, it's permissible. Those people are wajib al-qatl. Those were the fatwas. Where did they learn this from? The individuals that they took to be imams in the beginning. Look at how the Shias live, even amongst non-believers. Has there been a fatwa like this to kill the Sunnis from any of our Maraja? There's never been a fatwa like this. But you see the muftis of the Ahl Sunnah, you see their books, they're filled with fatwas like this. What have we done wrong? The only thing in their eyes that we did wrong is that we held on to Quran and Ahl al-Bayt. That's the only thing that we've done wrong. And you see, in Karbala, that's what the companions of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein al-Islam held on to. You see in Karbala tonight, this personality whose shahadat we're commemorating tonight, he doesn't have the same level of authority as Abu Abdullah al-Hussein al-Islam. That's absolutely true. He doesn't have that same authority. That's absolutely true. But the authority that Imam Hussein has given him, where he says to Abu al-Fazl Abbas alayhi salam, Ya Abbas, from today on, your name will be Bab al-Hawaij. From today on, one of the titles that you've been given is Bab al-Hawaij, the gate to the fulfillment of desires. Think about that, brothers and sisters. Only 3 individuals have been given this title. Abu al-Fazl Abbas alayhi salam has this title. Ali al-Asghar, he has this title. And Imam Musa Kazim alayhi salam, he has this title. That's it. Why was Abu al-Fazl Abbas alayhi salam given this title of Bab al-Hawaij? You look at the character of Abbas. You see that from the day that he came to this world to the day that he left this world, the only thing that he wanted to do was please the Imam of his time. That was it. That was it. If you want to know the Masaib of Abu al-Fazl Abbas, they do not start on the 10th of Muharram. No. The Masaib of Abu al-Fazl Abbas alayhi salam start when? The last moments of Amir al-Mu'mineen's life. The last moments of Amir al-Mu'mineen's life. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he's called all of the children. And one by one, what does he do? He tells them that I give you in the hands of Hassan. I give you in the hands of Hassan. I put you in the hand of Hassan. I put you. All of his children he puts in the hands of Hassan. Abu al-Fazl Abbas alayhi salam, he's waiting by the door. When he's waiting by the door and he isn't called, he starts to cry. He starts to cry, he goes into his room. When he goes into his room, Baneen, she asks him, oh my son Abbas, why are you crying? Mullah Abbas, he says, oh mother dear, have I done something wrong to upset Amir al-Mu'mineen? She goes, what do you mean? Amir al-Mu'mineen, he took all the children and one by one he gave them in the hands of Hassan. But he never called me. Oh mother, can you ask Amir al-Mu'mineen why he never called me? Baneen, she goes to Amir al-Mu'mineen and she says to him, Ya Ali, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, have I done something wrong? Have I done something to upset you? Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Baneen, you've not done anything to upset me. Has my son Abbas done anything to upset you? And he says, Baneen, he hasn't done anything to upset me either. Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, my son Abbas is crying. Why? Because all the children you gave to Hassan, you've left him standing. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Ya Baneen, go call my son Abbas. When Abbas comes, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says to Abbas, he looks at him and he goes, Abbas, there's going to come a time when my son Hussein, he's going to be lonely. There's going to come a time when my son Hussein, he's going to be a traveler. Abbas, I want you to be by his side when that time comes. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulallah. Sallallahu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Sallallahu alayki ya Siddiqatu Fatima. Sallallahu alayka ya Hasan al-Mujtaba. Sallallahu alayka ya Gharib al-Ghuraba. Ya Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. Brother, sister, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he tells Abu al-Fazl Abbas, Ya Abbas, give me your hand. Well, he takes Abu al-Fazl Abbas' hand and he tells him, Ya Abbas, put your hand over Hussein's hand and I want you to pledge allegiance to him. When Abbas, he hears this, he says, oh father dear, I'll put my hands on Hussein's feet and I'll pledge allegiance to him. Brothers, sisters, that was the 21st of Ramadan. Now come to Ashur. Abu al-Fazl Abbas alayhi salam, he looks around, he sees there's no army left. He goes to Abu Abdullah and he says, Mawla, do you give me permission to sacrifice my life for your cause? That's what Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he says to Abbas, Abbas, you're the commander of my army. When he looks around, he says, Mawla, what army is there for me to command now? There's no one left except for women and children. There's no one left except for me. When he says this, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he says to Abbas, Abbas, if you want to go, then please go bring some water for my children. They're all thirsty. Abu al-Fazl Abbas, the narration said that Imam Hussein, he told him to keep his sword down and he told him to just go with the spear. He goes with the spear. He takes the mush, and when he gets to the Furat, he sees the Furat, he gets to the Furat, he takes some water into his hands and he wants to drink it. But as soon as he puts it up to his face, he remembers Al-Atash, Al-Atash. He remembers the thirst of the children. He throws the water away and he says, oh Nafs, will you be drinking this cold water when the children of Hussein, they're dying of thirst? When Abu al-Fazl Abbas throws that water away, he tries to go back to the camp and there were enemies that were hiding behind trees. One of the enemies, they strike the left arm of Abu al-Fazl Abbas and it gets severed. Another enemy, they strike the right arm of Abu al-Fazl Abbas and it gets severed. When it gets severed, Abu al-Fazl Abbas, what does he do? He takes that mush and he puts it in his mouth. When he puts it in his mouth, there's another enemy. What did they do? They shoot an arrow and that arrow, it strikes through that mush. When the water starts to drip, that's when Abu al-Fazl Abbas alayhi salam, he falls to the ground. When he falls to the ground, he's on his knees, and there's another arrow that strikes Abu al-Fazl Abbas alayhi salam in his eyes. What does he try to do? When he gets to his knees, he tries to take out that arrow with his knees. Why? Because he had no arms to take out that arrow. When he gets to the floor, when he gets on his knees, another enemy, he comes from the back, and he strikes Abu al-Fazl Abbas alayhi salam across the back of the head. When Abu al-Fazl, he falls to the ground, he shouts out, Ya Aba Abdullah, Assalamu alayk. When he sends the last salam to Abu Abdullah, Mullah Hussein, he rushes towards Abu Fazl Abbas alayhi salam. He puts his head on his lap and he says, Ya Abbas, now my back is broken. Ya Abbas, now the enemy is rejoicing because you're leaving this world. Mullah Abbas, he looks at Abu Abdullah Hussein and he says, Mullah, can I ask you for another favor? He goes, what is it, Ya Abul Fazl Abbas, Ya Abbas, what is it? Mullah Abbas, he said, Mullah, I had heard from my mother that when I was born, the first face that I saw was your face. Mullah, there's blood in one of my eyes and there's arrows stuck in the other eye. Mullah, I will trouble you, please, with your own hands. Can you remove that blood so that I can see your face? Mullah, I would not have troubled you if I had my own hands. I would have removed it myself. When Imam Hussein, he removed that blood, Mullah Abbas, he said, Mullah, I have two requests of you. My first request is that you do not take my body back to the camps. Why? Because I had promised Sakina that I would bring water and I don't have that water with me. Mullah, my second request is that you leave my body here. But Mullah, whenever the visitors come to me, I don't want them to go empty-handed from my place. Mullah Hussein, he says, Abbas, I will not take your body back there. Abbas, from today you are known as Qamar Bani Hashim. Up until today you are known as Qamar Bani Hashim. But after today you will be given the title of Babul Hawaij. Brothers and sisters, when Imam Hussein he says this, he looks at Abbas and he says, Abbas, my whole life, our whole life, you've always called me Mawla. You've always called me Aqa. You've always called me Master. Abbas, just this one time before you leave this world, can you call me brother? When he says this, Mullah Abbas, he looks at Hussein, he says, oh my master, this is the way my mother raised me, to always call you master. Brothers and sisters, after the events of Karbala, Bishr, he comes to Medina. And he wants to tell the people about what happened in Karbala. When he wants to tell the people, Baleen, she's by the gate, and she asks, what is the news? And Bishr, he asks, who are you? She says, I'm Baleen. When he hears that she's Baleen, what does he say? He says, Azbullah jurika bi qatlika waladika Abdullah. Oh Baleen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you patience over the death of your son, Abdullah. When she says this, she says, I don't want to hear about my son. Tell me about Hussein. Then he says, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you patience over the death of your son Uthman. I don't want to know about Uthman. Tell me about Hussein. Then she says, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you patience over the death of your third child. She says, I don't care about any of my children. Tell me about Hussein. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you patience over the death of Hussein. When he says this, that's when Baleen, she starts to cry and she asks him, where was my son Abbas when this happened to Hussein? When she says this, that's when that person, he says, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you patience over the death of your son Abbas. He fought bravely in the way of Hussein. His arms were severed. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وَلَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى قَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. Matam Hussein.
Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas.